So now that we've got processing installed, let's make our first sketch. When you open processing, it's going to present you with a default sketch, and it's just named this generic name. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to convert this to a P5 sketch, not a Java sketch. So probably open to Java by default right here, but we're going to set it to P5.js. So you can see it starts a new project for us and it gives us a couple of files. Let's save this. And you'll notice then when I hit save, the first thing it does is it takes me to that folder that I defined it in my preferences. And I've made a folder called demos where I'm going to save this. So I'm going to save my project as P5js underscore intro demo 01. The reason for this is because you can't have spaces, you can't have hyphens, it'll convert hyphens to underscores, and it's best to not have your file, your project name, start with a number. And I always increment mine numerically so that I can iterate, so that I can make 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I do that a lot in my process, so I would just get in the habit of doing something like that when you name your files. So no spaces, no hyphens, and I would end it with like a number, like 01 for example. Okay, so when I hit save, let's look at what it created. So if I right click on the top tab, I can go to where those files are, and I'll see that it's made my JavaScript file, .js. That's where I'm going to do most of my work. There's also this libraries folder, which has the P5 library in it. We're not going to do much here, but in the future we might do a little bit. Same thing with index.html. We'll make a couple of changes here later, but nothing right now. And then sketch properties, you just leave that alone. We're not going to do anything with it. The reason why I want to show you this is also because the relationship of these files is important. If you were to put this on a website or something, or submit it to me, you would grab all of these things and upload them all together just like this, because these relationships do matter. Okay, so into the sketch here. So we have function setup and function draw, which it's automatically populated for us. The way this works is function setup runs one time right when your program starts, and function draw runs over and over and over again, meaning for setup, any of the code that appears here in between these squiggly brackets will run one time at the beginning of the program. In between these brackets will run over and over and over again. So that we can see how this preview works, let's first give it a background color. So let's just give it a black background. By default, it's kind of a light gray. So let's do background 0 and hit save. And then when we want to preview it, what we do is we hit the run button. And you can see here, it flips over to Chrome, and it is showing me this in my Chrome window. Now, I prefer Chrome for this because Chrome has very strong debugging tools. So as we start getting more and more complicated with the things that we're building, Chrome has more tools built in to help us troubleshoot when things don't work as expected. So whether you use Chrome, Safari, it's up to you. I'm going to use Chrome for all the demos. Okay, so background color 0. So you can see here, it's running my application, but my application is only this little square, I don't know, 100 by 100 square in the upper left. And instead we want it to actually take up the full browser window. So if I say resize Canvas, and again, notice I'm inside of the squiggly brackets for setup. I've typed Resize Canvas, capital C, capitalization is important. Let's say I set it to 500 by 500. Now that's pixels. So now what it is going to do is it's going to resize my canvas so that it's 500 by 500. So you'll see this square, well, turn into a 500 pixel by 500 pixel square when I hit refresh, right? I can make it like 900 by 500. So what I'm doing every time I make a change is I'm hitting save, going back over to Chrome, hitting refresh, and then flipping back to processing. Now, the way that I'm flipping back to processing, this is another shortcut for you, is I'm hitting Command Tab. And if you hit Command Tab very quickly, you go back immediately to the last program that you were at. If you hit Command Tab and continue holding down, you can tab through your open programs here. And if you hold down the Shift key, you go through them backwards. So you'll see me Command Tab a lot to flip back and forth. And I just have my left hand on Command and my middle finger on Tab so that I can move back and forth between these programs really easily. Okay, so that's good if I know exactly what size I want my canvas to be. But let's say I want it to be my full browser width and height no matter what it is. I can do that by assigning it, instead of a number, I can assign it a value of window width for the first parameter and window height. Now, this idea of a function that has multiple parameters is something we are going to encounter a lot. And it's just a matter of learning and finding in the documentation sometimes, or remembering what the different parameters are. So Resize Canvas has two parameters, a width and a height. You know that, right? You've done that in documents before. Set the width of your document, the height of your document. Essentially what we're doing now. Resize Canvas, window width, window height. So when I hit save and hit refresh, I'll now see my black box goes full frame. Now my background is black also, so you can't really see it super well. So let's talk about color for a second. Anytime you assign a color, like background and then this color, if you just put in one number, like 0, it's black. And if you just use the one number, it provides you with a grayscale value. So if I do 255 and hit refresh, that's white. So the scale goes from 0, black, to 255. This is a very common standard RGB scale. If you've ever worked in RGB in any of the Adobe programs, you've seen this in the sliders. You're punching in values between 0 and 255. So if there's one value, it's a grayscale. So if you wanted a middle gray, 125. So it'll give you like a middle gray there. But let's say you want a color. If you want a color, you can put in 3 values: a red value, a green value, and a blue value. So RGB 255, 0, 255 is going to give me a bright pink background. Right? So I've now made my canvas full size. I've assigned a background color, and I want to do just a couple more things. The next thing that I want to do is show you how to draw a shape, really simple shape. We're going to draw a rectangle. The way that we draw a rectangle is by using the rect function. Now this function has 4 parameters. It has a width, a height, an X position, and a Y position. The first 2 parameters are the X and the Y position. So let's say I want it to be 500 pixels on the X, which is horizontal. So it'd be 500 pixels from the left side of the browser. And let's say 250 pixels for the Y. So that's from the top of the browser. So 0, 0 is up here. So 500 on the X is this way. 250 on the Y is this way. And then the last 2 parameters are the width and the height. So let's say it's just going to draw a 20 by 20 square. Close the semicolon. Close the parenthesis, add a semicolon. So now when I refresh, I will see a square being drawn, 500 pixels on the X, so 500 pixels from the left, and then the Y value is 250, so 250 pixels from the top. Now, if I want to change what color that is, the way that I do it is with a function called fill. Fill works the same way. If I put in 0, it's going to fill black. If I put in something like 255, 0, 125, oops, type too many characters, it's going to fill in orange. If I put in something like 0, 255, 255, then I'm going to get this really kind of like bright cyan type color, right? So I've got my X position, my Y position, the width, the height, RGB, red, green, blue, RGB. You can look these up. You can find out what a particular color is in RGB values, and you can put them in here. Now, what's fun about code is anywhere there's a number to start playing around, you can put something that returns a number. So for example, instead of drawing this at a fixed position, I can draw this wherever the mouse is. And I do that by using the mouse X for the X position and the mouse Y for the Y position. So now I'm going to have a 20 pixel by 20 pixel square that is drawing wherever I put the mouse. So I'm starting to kind of make my own little drawing tool, right? And it doesn't have to be square. I can adjust this. If I want it to be 120 pixels tall and only 10 pixels wide, I hit refresh. And so now I have, oops, I said it backwards, 120 pixels wide and only 10 pixels tall. I can flip it the other way. So I can make it 10 pixels wide and 120 pixels tall. So width and height. Right? So setup runs at the beginning and draw runs over and over and over again. And that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing that this is running constantly and drawing a rectangle wherever I put my cursor. So now what I would like you to do is play with this. I would like you to change out these values, play with color, play with the position. You could try adding numbers. So let's say I add 100 to the X position. See, now it is 100 pixels to the right of the mouse, not just where the mouse is. So play with color, play with the position. The other thing I want you to do is I would like you to close all of your files and rewatch this video a couple more times and do it again. so that you can start to commit some of these basic things to memory. Resize canvas, window width, window height, background, fill, rect, mouse X, mouse Y. The more you can sort of remember or at least be really, really familiar with these, the better it'll be when we get on to the next thing. So once you've done this, close it, start a new file, maybe name it number 2, maybe name it 1A, something like that, and do this again and see if you can start remembering more of it as you're doing it 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, hopefully that's useful. This will all be very foundational, and we will do these sorts of things over and over again as we build out more and more complicated things. As always, reach out if you have any questions.